All right. Hey, everyone. Mark here, Mark P Markets. Thank you for joining me for another Bitcoin video analysis session. If you're new here, welcome. Let me briefly explain how this works. First, I'm going to run through the economic calendar so we can be aware of any important events that may be coming out this week that can help us mitigate risk. Second, I'm going to go over the Bitcoin chart, which today we're going to talk about how to analyze candlesticks based on price levels. Okay, this is something that I think a lot of beginners tend to overlook. They just focus on the candlesticks. So we're going to talk about candlesticks in relation to price location. And then after that, we're going to go over the Trade Scanner Pro, and we're going to talk about any possible trades that may come up. And I can show you a demonstration of how the Trade Scanner Pro works. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. All right, hold on a second. Let me pull up my slide. Where's my slide? Okay, 1 second here. So it's for education. This is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. Next, just say a quick hello. We got Steen in the room. Guys, you see Steen's question? All right, I'm going to put this question up here. All right, say hello to Steen. He says, what are your thoughts about the Trade Scanner Pro on the chart in the server, on the Discord server? All right, so Steen has made a major update, which is it's just amazing to me how he's done this. And basically, the Trade Scanner bot, which is this based on the same strategy as the script, the bot would previously, like a year ago, the bot, all it could do was send out the entries and the exits and all that stuff, right? It would just send out the order information, and it was only on a very limited list of market symbols. Today, thanks to Steen's hard work, the Trade Scanner bot can now not only give you the orders, but it actually sends out a chart with the Trade Scanner Pro lines. You could see the order lines illustrated on the chart. Okay, so you have the entry, the stop loss, the take profit, and all that stuff on the chart. It's beautiful. And it comes out in the Discord channel, right? We have channels where you could see in the server, you could see one that comes out. There's a new signal each day that comes out. We used to have trade of the week. Now we have trade of the day. So it rotates through all of these symbols, and it finds a signal, and it shows a signal each day. All right. We also send that out by email, but the email thing isn't working exactly right now. So, but you could still see it in the Discord channel. All right. So anyway, that's a really cool thing. Now, if you want more than one trade per day, you can check out the website for that. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. So answer his question. I mean, what do you guys think of that? You guys that can see it in the community. All right. And then let me say hello to my other people here. We got Alex from Romania. He is the moderator in the Discord chat. Okay, he's one of the moderators, and he does a great job answering questions and things like that there. So thanks for being here, Alex. We got Lad, all right, my regulars. All right, we got Narino. How are you? Okay, cool. Good to see you guys. Thanks for stopping by. It's a little quiet. I guess, the back to school season is a little quiet, on the quieter side in terms of people wanting to trade and stuff like that. But whatever, that's cool. You know what? That's just more opportunity for us. Anyway, so before I get into the calendar, let me just mention a couple of links in the description. By the way, if you like the video, please press the like button. Please subscribe. It helps the channel and all that stuff. So if you're interested in the Trade Scanner Pro, there's a link in the description, okay? And that will take you there. You could sign up for 14 days. We'll talk about that, as we go through the stream. Second, if you want the trade of the day, you can sign up for the email. Again, you could try to sign up. I have to fix something there. But anyway, trade of the day, or you go to the Discord community, right? That's the next link. You could go to the Discord community. It's a free area, and you can access the trade of the day channel that Steen has set up there. All right, so check out those links. Now, if you're interested in signing up for an exchange like Bybit or MEXC, and you're a non-US resident, consider one of the affiliate links that we have in the description. Those are Steen's affiliate links. And if you open an account and you fund an account and you trade, Steen gets a small cut. So it helps him a long way. It helps him to continue to support the community and work on all this great technology. I mean, we have a bunch of things that we're working on behind the scenes that, are pretty interesting. All right. So again, show him some love. If you're interested in signing up, consider one of those links. If you'd like to sign up for TradingView, there's also a affiliate link for that there as well. That also goes to Steen. So there are some benefits to having a paid version of TradingView, but it is not required. All right, just to let you know. Also, if you just like the tip Steve and outright, there's a Polygon wallet address and an Ethereum wallet address. So if you just want to, be generous and show him some appreciation, consider that as well. Okay, so again, that's that. So if you want to share what city or what country you are from, that's always a fun fact. I'm streaming from the greater New York City area, also known as Northern New Jersey. All right, so that explains why I may say things funny sometimes. All right, so okay, cool. I was just looking at the text. All right, so let's move along here and let's talk about the economic calendar very quick. Sometimes I like to ask you guys what you think is important so that we can kind of talk about it. But today I'm just going to tell you what you should be paying attention to. You could use any economic calendar for this. Now, the first item that really should be paying attention to is tomorrow, which is Tuesday. We have the Bank of Australia. They have their rate announcement. So it's not the most important number in the world, but if you trade Forex and you're in a Forex pair that has Aussie in it, it can have an effect. Okay, so when it comes to rate announcements, it's really the Fed that has the biggest effect. But again, think of these numbers as secondary. It's like a secondary important number, right? Of secondary importance, but be aware of it. So you have Bank of Australia tomorrow. On Wednesday, there's nothing. On Thursday, we have Swiss National Bank. They're coming out with their rate announcement. So keep an eye on the franc, any franc crosses, all right? Be aware of that. And we also have Chairman Powell. He is speaking on Thursday. This is important. His speech is probably going to be closely watched. Why? Because the week before, the guy surprised everyone with his 0.5 point rate cut, which everyone was expecting 25 basis points. He comes out with 50. And then he explained why. If there is any more information on that, it can come out on Thursday. And if there are any surprises, there can be a range expansion. So please be aware. I don't know exactly what time he begins speaking. It could be at the market open. It could be at 10 o'clock. Double check the timestamp, please. Okay. And then on Friday, we have core PCE, which is an inflationary gauge, I believe, or the Fed uses that number when they're measuring their inflation, when they're doing their inflation numbers or whatever. So check the time on that as well. I believe it's 10 a.m. Eastern time, but double check the time. All right. Again, that's core PCE, and that's on Friday. All right. So those are probably the most important numbers. All right. So again, the whole point of that is to be aware of what's going on so that you don't get caught in anything and you don't realize why has this thing jumped to like whatever. I don't understand. That's particularly important for day traders. All right. Now let's move along and let's talk about today's chart, shall we? All right. So hold on. What are we seeing here? Oh, they're talking about his name. All right, cool. I was just checking the chat. All right. So let's talk about this chart. As you can see, if you look at my previous week's analysis on Bitcoin, let me make the chart bigger. All right, you don't need to see me so big now. When you look at my previous week, I totally anticipated this move right here. Completely. If you look at my chart from the previous week on TradingView and you look at my analysis, my illustration was very accurate. Now, is that random? Well, we can argue that it's random, but I've been getting it right a lot. It's consistent, right? Why is that? And the whole point is it's because I pay attention to really only two things. I talk about it every week: levels and trend. That's it. And based on that information, I can arrive at a scenario that is most likely to occur. It doesn't have to. The market can do whatever it wants. But when you see the confirmations, which is the key part of the whole thing, and that's where the Trade Scanner Pro comes in, that's really what helps you align with this sort of thing. But you have to have a premise in advance, some kind of premise that you want the market to confirm. Now, the Trade Scanner Pro, just so you know, is a confirmation tool. It can also be described as a management tool to manage your positions. It takes care of all the hard parts for you. The easy part is the forecasting part. And I hope in these streams to teach you how to do the forecasting properly so that you can use the Trade Scanner Pro and get the most out of it, right? So let's talk about candlesticks and their locations. So as you can see here, we just talked about, what do I mean by locations? So we're talking about support and resistance levels. When it comes to candlesticks, again, you want to have a context. Do not make the mistake of looking at a candlestick by itself. No, pin bar, okay, that's enough. A candlestick can appear anywhere randomly. The market is mostly random. So what gives a candlestick any value, any forecasting value, is where the candlestick appears. Where meaning price levels. So what price levels? How do we know support and resistance levels? Well, the thing is, support and resistance levels occur on every time frame. But the larger time frames, they're going to carry more weight than the smaller time frames. So for example, on a 1-minute chart, you can find support and resistance levels, but they're going to be very temporary unless they align with a bigger picture like the daily chart, right? But when you look at a daily chart, these levels are going to be pretty solid a lot or often, and they're not going to change very much. If you look at my chart here, these levels, this is a consolidation, as we can tell, which I called back in March, and we're still in the consolidation. If you notice here, this resistance area has been intact for months and months and months and is still the resistance area. In fact, you can say that we have a resistance zone up in here, okay? So whenever price gets up into that area, you should be thinking about selling, aggressive shorts, whatever. Like, you should not be aggressively buying. And usually in this zone is when all the frauds and clowns come out and tell you to buy, right? We also have a support zone, right? This area here below, like the 50K, 53 to 50, and anything slightly below, that's a place to buy. In fact, every time we were inside that zone and I had my stream, I talked about this is a great place to invest. If you're looking for bigger picture stuff, that's your lowest risk place. If you're going to put on a larger allocation than usual, like we've talked about the allocation plan that I've described it many times. You can go back to my previous streams, but that zone is where you'd be putting on, instead of like $100 worth per month, which is like part, if that was your plan, you'd be putting on $200 or $300 worth, in that location, because that's a higher probability location and a lower risk location. Now, that's what I mean by location, right? So location can play an important role whether you are investing or whether you're looking for short-term movements. Now, when it comes to candlesticks, candlesticks can be a very helpful source of confirmation. Now, candlesticks can be confusing, and that's why we have the Trade Scanner Pro, which basically does a similar job. But the Trade Scanner Pro looks at much more than just a candlestick. Also, the Trade Scanner Pro helps you manage a position. A candlestick does not do that. And a candlestick doesn't trail anything. Like, we have a trailing stop and all that stuff that's based on price movements. Candlesticks can't help you with that either, unless you know how to manually trail the stop yourself, which I've explained also. But anyway, the point is this. We begin with location if we want to evaluate or analyze a candlestick. So I just finished saying that this area here is support. That's on this time frame. On this time frame. We can argue that there are smaller support and resistance levels inside of all this price action, but those would be more relevant to smaller time frames, like a 4-hour, maybe a 1 hour. But we're on the daily here, and we're only concerned with the levels on the daily chart. We have a resistance up here. Okay, that's pretty solid. It's pretty easy to see. So knowing that, the price action that occurs around those levels is going to be very telling or very important. So let's talk about what's happening right now. What is this? So we know 64K is a resistance. It's proven that a number of times. Look at the touches, right? Look at the touch back here. This goes back months. Look at the touch over here. Look at this. It was a support. Like, once it broke the resistance, it became a support briefly. It broke back below, became a resistance again, right? So at this moment, it's still a resistance. So if we know we are at a notable resistance level like 64K, what type of price action should we anticipate here? What type of candles do you think we should see? Anyone want to answer that question? And Steen, you're allowed to answer that question too. Sometimes I tell Steen, he knows all the answers, so tell him, give other people a chance. But that might be a tough question for some people. So Steen, if you want to answer the question, you can. So, all right. Pin bars. That's a good answer. What kind of pin bars? Bearish pin bars or bullish pin bars? Any bearish pin bars? Okay, right. So you're looking for bearish price action. It could be in the form of a pin bar. It could be an inside bar. It can also be a break of daily candle lows. Break of low. right? That's what my illustration here, this line that I drew, that's what I'm anticipating, right? Because we broke what the previous day when I was writing my article, we broke this previous candle low. We broke that low. See that? And we're kind of flirting with that low, but there's no follow through. So on this time frame, though, this is meaningful information. You have to understand something about market information. Most of us, especially beginners, we consume lots and lots of bad information. It could be from a fake guru. It could be from expert, people who claim to be expert analysts, blah, 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 right? Your own hunches, your own whatever, an oscillator. There's lots of bad information out there. It's irrelevant information. It doesn't carry any actual value. So you're playing basically a slot machine most of the time. Even this information can be random. But the thing is, our goal is to isolate non-random locations, right? So support and resistance levels are likely to be less random because there's human behavior behind that. And that's what's forecastable, the human behavior part, because it repeats itself. People at resistance levels, for whatever reason, they sell there, okay? And if they've sold there before, like they have, they're likely to sell again, okay? If the resistance level breaks, then there are shorts that are typically stuck there. And now they naturally want to buy to cover their position, right? That's when a resistance level becomes a support, or vice versa. A support level becomes a resistance because people are stuck in that location. We can't see that because we can't see a real order book, but that's the theory as to what's happening and why the level has any relevance, right? And the fact that history repeats itself gives us a point of interest where we can anticipate something. That is where we surface trade ideas from, because we can now anticipate something. So you guys just said we should be expecting bearish price action over here. Okay, so you have a premise. That premise helps to shape your decisions going forward. You know that if you're expecting bearish price action, for one, this is a bad place to be going long for swing trades. I think we could all agree on that, right? You want to try to buy support levels or some type of pullback or something like that, or at least a continuation pattern of some kind. You could get a breakout here, but those are going to be higher risk, okay? You could get a breakout, and there's ways to mitigate that risk. But the easier or more conservative thing is to just wait for a pullback to a support in a bullish structure, and you go long. You're looking for the long. You're looking for confirmation. Now, we can't lose sight of the structure. So that's also an important factor, right? Like, so for example, this structure over here is a bearish structure. The general trend in the overall market is range bound, but this is a mini bearish structure within the trend. It's part of the consolidation. This here is a bullish structure, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to continue. Right now, we have a bullish structure going up to here. You see the higher lows and the higher highs. That's a bullish structure. That means that we should anticipate that that structure will stay intact until or unless the market gives us a new piece of information. And that new piece of information could be we produced a higher low, but we failed to make a higher high. It's followed by another bearish reversal, and then we take out the low, right? That's pretty simple and straightforward. We take out this low, then we can start arguing that the structure's changing. This is all of your broader information. This is important to look at because this can shape your day trades and your swing trades. That's why it's so important. Okay, so does that make sense? So you're judging candlesticks by location. So right now, this is like a bearish doji type of situation. At this point, the color of the candles don't really matter. The location matters. So we take out these candle lows, then this scenario is likely to be in effect. Okay, the pullback to notice. How come I haven't drawn my illustration all the way to the support level? Anyone want to answer that question? That might be a tough question to answer, but let's see. Why haven't I drawn my illustration all the way to here? How come I stopped here? Anyone want to answer that question? Why have I stopped sort of in the middle there? Because, you know, a lot of novices who don't know any better, oh, you're going to go all the way back to 50K and I'm going to short it and I'm going to make $1 billion because I know how markets work, right? How come? Why am I picking the midpoint here? Why this? because the previous high that could act as support. Yes, that's a good answer, Stian. This level that I happen to pick happens to be 60K. Okay, there's a small support. Yes, and Narino says 60K will act as support. We are in a bullish momentum. Yes, you're all correct. This is why, and the structure, I just finished saying that the structure from this low to the current high is a bullish structure. Higher lows typically lead to higher highs. That's what a bullish structure means. So I'm anticipating a higher low. So this low should form or develop somewhere above this low, right? That's in theory, that's what it should do. So if this structure is going to stay intact, it should do something like that. If it does something other than that, then I may not have a bullish structure and I have to adjust. So the important part when you come up with a premise is you're not trying to be right. You're just saying, okay, this is a possibility that the market can show me, but the market is always right. The market can change. It's my job to adjust. A lot of people go wrong in this area and they say, oh, I thought it was going to do this. Oh, I thought it was going to do that. No, what we think doesn't matter. What matters is what the market thinks. So it can do this, and this is what I want to see, but it's got to confirm that. But I chose this level because 60K is a relevant level, and it's been touched numerous times. So if a higher low is going to develop, 60K or somewhere near 60K would be an ideal support level to spot what type of candles. What type of candles should I be expecting here? So in this area, anyone want to answer? You guys are following along pretty good here. What kind of candles should I be expecting inside of this blue rectangle here? And Savi, how are you? Minor support. Bullish pins again. Inside bars. Yes, that's correct. I should be looking for bullish reversals in this area. That's what the market should show me. That's confirmation. Now, if I don't want to sit here and, like I said, mess with candlesticks, I can use the Trade Scanner Pro. Candlesticks can also be very noisy. Right? You may get a green candle and the next candle's red, and you're like, I don't know what's going on here. Plus, the candles don't define risk for you. You could use the candle low, but the Trade Scanner Pro doesn't do that. The Trade Scanner Pro looks back and looks at recent price movement, and that's how it defines risk. It's going to be more accurate than a candle. You know, just a single candle. That's one. Those are the benefits to using something like the Trade Scanner Pro. But that tool is really something. I realize that tool is something for more advanced, slightly more advanced traders. Like you don't have to be, you know, a 10-year professional, but people like if you're an absolute beginner, you're not going to be able to use a tool. I've come to the conclusion that if you're an absolute beginner, you've been doing this a couple of months, you're going to think, what is this? You're going to cancel it. It's not going to do you any good because you're looking for a forecasting tool. You're looking for like a magic button, and the Trade Scanner Pro is not a magic button. It's a special kind of tool, and certain people that have some experience know how to use. They appreciate the value of what the tool does for you, because basically it simplifies your decision making once you're in the trade. It finds the entry for you, and then it simplifies everything after that, as long as you respect the orders, right? Okay, so you guys are pretty much you know, on point here. That's great. Great answers. So yes, that's all. So what I've defined here is how you're judging candles at levels rather than some random candle in the middle of nowhere. Like, so for example, inside of this area, right? If you had like some sort of inside bar or some sort of pin bar, okay, that could be a reversal. But the thing is, it's likely to be a lower probability because there's really no level here on this time frame. Perhaps a smaller time frame, it will be meaningful, but we're concerned only about this time frame for this analysis. When you take a trade, you have to have one time frame in mind. I'm taking a trade on this time frame because that time frame defines your risk and your profit objective. It's very important. You can't sit here and be like, hey, I got an intraday pin bar over here, so I'm going to go to my 1 minute chart and I'm going to go long. You can't do that because the 1 minute chart has its own risk parameters. It's risk and price objective parameters. So if you're going to trade a 1 minute chart, you have to make the judgments on that chart, and you have to use a slightly larger time frame for your context. I'll explain that in a moment. Okay, is that clear? So right now we're just stuck on we're focusing on this time frame and what to anticipate on this time frame. I show this on TradingView, again, to give people a broader view. But there's so much detail that you can go into here. There's so much you can do, like with all this, especially on the day trade timeframes, just off the information that I just gave you now. Okay, we know we're near a major resistance. That means on smaller time frames, especially 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute, shorts may be very attractive up here for brief intraday shorts, but longs may also be attractive at these daily lows, because look at the bounces off of that, right? So there's something there. There's something going on there on the smaller time frames, and those could be opportunities for people that are interested in day trades. All right, so is everyone clear on what I'm talking about here on this time frame? Because this is important when you're trying to formulate a swing trade, or at least gauge expectations. The information that I just gave you basically says you should not be going long up here. It's high risk, low probability for longs up here. If you must go long, like say for example, we're anticipating a reversal, but what if we get an inside bar like this over the next few days, inside bar, and then we get a break like this, right? That's a continuation pattern. So everyone may be anticipating a reversal because we got reversals before, but some news may come out or something, change things, and then you get this bullish inside bar, followed by the break of the high of that inside bar. You get something like that, that's not a short. If you're short and you're expecting the short and you get that, that's a conflicting signal. You should get out, take the loss, or whatever. Don't get stuck in this, because if the next one goes, you may get the breakout. Okay, and that's what I'm anticipating here. That's why I drew this like this, okay, and not stuck at 64K. The breakout may occur here, okay, after it produces that higher low, the higher high may happen, but it doesn't mean it's going to follow my illustration. It may do it sooner. It's very possible. So you need to be prepared for that conflict, and you need to be able to adjust the risk if you're short, for example, because it can do something like this. That's a possibility. Right. And of course, when you see something like that, everyone's going to be going nuts, going 100K. You're going to see all the videos coming out and all that stuff. I hope, I know most of you have been following me for a while, so you're not going to get mixed up in that. But beginners, they get fooled every time. Of course, when you get up into this area here, that's going to be another resistance. And again, you're back looking for bearish type of action. Does that mean you have to go short? No. Just because you're expecting bearish price action, again, the structure would be very bullish. Shorts are going to be lower probability, particularly on this time frame. Now, sure, if you're shorting a 5-minute chart, that's another story. And that's why the Trade Scanner Pro really shines, because it shows you your price objective for something like that. Because again, a common mistake is people see the resistance and they're like, oh, I'm going to short it, right? And then they put in their own price objective. Oh, it's going to go back to here. But that's not realistic. And the Trade Scanner Pro tells you what is realistic to expect, even though it may not get there, but it's much more realistic. And that's a very valuable thing. All right. Anyway, we'll get into that in a moment. So any questions about what I'm showing you here so far? So when you get to levels, you want to judge the price action. And from that price action, from these candles, which is a price action gauge, we can arrive at trade ideas, whether it's a swing trade, which would be on this time frame, or a day trade, something smaller than a swing trade, on a smaller time frame, based on what's going on here with this larger candle at these levels, at this particular level. So like, for example, when we get to our smaller time frame, we know that we're at a pretty significant resistance level, and I want to see what the resistance levels look like on the smaller time frames. Maybe there's some shorting opportunities here. Like that would be something for like maybe a 15-minute, 30-minute, 4-hour type of chart. A 1 minute, there may be longs over here. I don't know. We have to see, right? It's going to change a lot more on the smaller time frames. Does that make sense? So let me see. Do I have any questions? Narino says, will the previous Fed interest rate decision be an important factor for the break of 64K? Okay, that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that, because again, that Fed decision is strange. Okay. Usually when the Fed does something aggressive like that, like there's all angles here. When the Fed does something like that, it's usually because we have a recession. The Fed is typically reactive. So they wait until we're in a recession, then they do something like that. The Fed is trying to say that they're anticipating, right? So they're trying to get ahead, and they're cutting ahead so that the recession that they see coming is, they're able to smooth that out, right? Instead of waiting for it. That's what I saw. Now, I don't know. It's confusing to me. All that economic stuff, I try not to get wrapped up in it, because all I know is lowering interest rates is typically a good thing, because it means money becomes cheaper and people tend to have more money. Now, it takes time, though. It doesn't happen just because we had a rate cut a week ago, doesn't mean we're going to see positive effects right away. It takes like 6 months before we see effects of a rate cut really start to show themselves in the system. It takes something like that. So I would say, to answer your question right now, I would just ignore that, and just say, okay, it's generally a good sign. But as far as breaking 64K now, I don't think it really has much of an effect. You're gonna have to have some other short-term catalyst, that comes out. But generally, the lower rates, and he also said he was going to cut another 25 and another 25 over the next couple of months. So the market's priced that in as well, which means is like, so what were they expecting? They must have been expecting some kind of recession if he's cutting so aggressively so quickly. What is that all about? Plus here in the US, I don't know where you're located, but here we have inflation to begin with. Although the Fed doesn't think we have inflation. Oh, prices are pretty good. Not when I go to the supermarket. I don't know. This looks like inflation to me. So I'm not sure what's going on here. It's very confusing. I don't know if it's politically motivated, but it's not typical. So all I can go by is lower rates are typically a good thing, and a good thing, especially for like small caps and highly aggressive, highly riskier assets. But that's not right this moment. So right this moment, you want to start watching them. If you're doing that, that's a long-term thing. And you want to start watching for reversals and more positive structures, because as rates start going lower, money starts to become more available. But again, like I said, it takes time. All right. Look more political. Right. I mean, it can be. It can be politically motivated. I don't know what's going on with that. It can be, but we could sit here and talk about conspiracy theories all day. I don't know. And I don't know what to make of that. It's strange. It's unusual. And that's all I can say. Cuts are typically better than raising rates. But this is a strange time to be cutting rates. So especially like that. And we're going to get 2 more 25 basis point cuts. So maybe he'll say something about this on Thursday. I don't know. All right. So yes, that they're supposed to stimulate the economy, lad. But the point is, if we're not in a recession, what is he stimulating? We have inflation. What's he stimulating? What is there to stimulate? Right? We have inflation. So cutting rates is going to make our money even more worthless, theoretically. All right. So, yeah. So anyway, so I just try to, we could talk about this economic stuff all day, and it could be extremely boring. Try to simplify it as much as possible. Remember, less is more. You want to, especially as a short-term trader, you want to be a minimalist. And that means consuming the least amount of information possible. Don't let that Fed stuff get in the way of your trades. That's really something more for the business cycle and for investing, right? So I would say with the rates lowering, you definitely want to keep an eye on market pullbacks to supports. Generally, if you're going to invest, you want to wait for those pullbacks. No reason to rush into this now. We're at resistance levels. The S&P and NASDAQ are not at their lows, nowhere near their lows. So you might want to wait for some kind of news can come out somewhere. Next thing you know, S&P pulls back 10%, and everyone's like, whoa, well, I wasn't expecting that. I thought rates were going lower. But if it does that in a environment where rates are lowering, that's an opportunity to buy, rather than buying when rates are rising and the S&P is pulling back. That's usually not a good time to buy if rates are rising. Makes sense? So think of it more of like an investor. And that's how I'm going to consider it. But I want to see pullbacks. There's no pullbacks. We have not had any real pullbacks in quite some time. Right? And that's because of the way the government spends. And that's why we have inflation. Inflation usually comes from the interest rates, typically, right? And how the Fed manages the economy and the money supply. But this time, it's all the way the government spends, which I don't know. I don't see, that's usually not on the forefront of the political stuff that I see. You really have to look for that stuff, right? But that's when all this time, when I'm seeing prices going higher, and I'm like, where is this inflation coming from? The Fed has been raising rates the whole time. I'm very confused, but that's what it is. Right? That's an unusual factor. The government is doing stuff. So get a change of administration, possibly that can change. That expenditure part is going to be cut if the administration changes. If it doesn't change, you better buy gold. That's all I can tell you. Buy some gold, buy some silver, buy some Bitcoin, because we're going to have worthless dollars. Okay. Anyway, all right. So, hey, Peter, how are you? Good to see you. All right. So enough ranting on that. I don't want to get political on you guys. But anyway, that's the story. So are we clear here? Are we clear? Because I want to move on to the Trade Scanner Pro. So this information that I just shared with you is very important for when you're formulating ideas for your Trade Scanner Pro. Like, so for example, if you're someone that's working on a 15-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute, whatever, a 4-hour chart, you're open to shorts up here. You're open to shorts if you're aggressive. Now, you don't have to do this. I show Bitcoin all the time because I'm familiar with the levels and it's a nice example. But you don't have to trade Bitcoin. You can trade whatever you want. But the concepts are the same, right? So, you're at a resistance, especially a range resistance like this, you open to shorts. If you want to short this bigger time frame, wait for better confirmation. This is not enough confirmation, right? Candle closes, break the low of the candle. Okay, there's your confirmation. But shorts are aggressive on this time frame because you're going into a higher low most likely. So your expectations have to be within reason, within the limitations of the structure. All right, so I'll leave you with that. Okay, now let's talk more about, let's get into the Trade Scanner Pro, shall we? Because I want to explain how you can use, how you can use this. So let me turn this on here, and let me turn the Trade Scanner Pro on, right? So you could see it's on because it's got this up here, right? There's nothing on the chart though. There's no trade or anything, but that's going to change. So let's change the time frame here before we get into the Trade Scanner Pro. And let me know if you have any questions. Good question about the interest rates. Make sure you're familiar with the business cycle when it comes to that. All right, just Google business cycle. Now let's go to, we're going to change our chart here, and we're going to go to, all right, hold on. We're going to go to Bitcoin Perp. So Bitcoin perpetual futures is what that means. And we're going to go to MEXC as the exchange, because MEXC is the affiliate that Stian uses, right? If you want to open up an account there. So it's nice to use their chart, whatever. And we're going to switch this to a 1 hour time frame. Okay, why 1 hour? Because on my example that I'm going to illustrate here, I'm looking for day trades. Now, there's a point to be made with that. When you're using the Trade Scanner Pro, before you do anything, before you pull up a chart, you must first decide, are you looking for day trades or are you looking for swing trades? This is very important because it shapes your decisions going forward. Don't look at a chart first and say, okay, I feel like a day trade right now. Do not do that. Start with what you want to look for first. So I'm telling you here, I'm looking for day trades, right? So we know this from the start before we even get into the analysis here. Now, if I know that, it's going to, my next step is it's going to define the time frames that I'm going to be using for my day trade idea. The hourly chart I have here is for my context. And then over here on this chart, you can see, let me just refresh this. I have a 15-minute chart. We're going to change this to a 1 minute because this here is my action chart. This is where I'm going to take the trade on my action chart. Why do I need two charts? Because the bigger picture chart gives me context, levels, and structure so that I can surface my trade idea. The action chart is where I'm going to follow the Trade Scanner Pro signal and management suggestions, which come from the order lines that it presents, right? Like if I go back to that 15-minute, you can see there's a trade on the chart, right? There's a long trade, which isn't really doing anything. That's 15 minutes though, right? So that's where I take my action. Now, a 15-minute, I would suggest for beginners, but I want to illustrate examples here, and I want you to see how the Trade Scanner Pro does things. So I'm switching to the 1 minute, right? Now, let me explain to you what the Trade Scanner Pro does exactly for those of you that are new. And by the way, here, let me do this real quick. I'm going to put in the channel the link. Okay, hold on. Make sure you're familiar with Austrian economics. Well, yeah, that if you're in Europe, sure, I understand what's going on over there, but the Fed is still, the dollar is still the world reserve currency. So what we do here pretty much affects the world with interest rates. The other banks typically follow and all that stuff. Just something to keep in mind. All right, so let me just put this link in the. I'm going to put this link in the channel here. All right. I don't have my my page up here. I'm going to have to pull it up here in a moment. But I'm going to do this TSCPRO. Let me just put this in here. And this is the link. All right. And I'm going to show it on the screen so you guys can see. If you go to that link, that's going to take you to the registration page of the Trade Scanner Pro. Now, you don't have to go there this moment. First, let me explain to you how this thing works, what it does. So the Trade Scanner Pro is a trend following momentum reversal system. So that means what it does is it identifies a trend. It can be bullish or bearish. And it tells you up here in this little section, bullish or bearish, right? The second thing that it will do, so in the example of a bullish trend, is it will measure the retrace of that trend. So it waits for a retrace. Once there's a retrace in the trend, it looks for a momentum reversal after the retrace. So it's measuring the momentum. Once a momentum reversal is confirmed by meeting certain criteria, which is usually the price action typically looks like that, it will then give you an order suggestion in the form of these horizontal lines. You get a stop loss, you get an entry price, and you get a take profit. The take profit is typically 1.5 times what your stop is, right? So again, this information is generated from the market. It's not picking arbitrary numbers. It's generated from previous price action. So this area would be your risk, right? It takes that risk, it multiplies it by 1.5, and it projects it, and that becomes your profit objective for that particular time frame. So a 1 minute is going to have its own unique parameters compared to a 5 minute, compared to a 30 minute, and going forward. Understand? So that's why it's a very valuable tool, because it's defining all of this for you, and it simplifies your decision-making process. So you should no longer have to ask, where do I get in? Where do I get out? Where do I go? Where do I take profit? How do I trail the stop? There is also a trailing stop. You could turn it on, and it typically starts out after the stop, and it'll move upon each close of the candle. It'll move like this on the side of your trade, and eventually, if it gets tapped, it closes out the whole illustration on your screen, and the trade is closed, right? So it gives you a trailing stop. Now, another very important feature with the Trade Scanner Pro is there's an advanced feature where it will ignore the trend. And what it will do is it will give you a signal here. That's counter trend. And that's typically a lower probability signal because it's going against the trend. But there are unique times when you'd want to use something like that. That's why we put that feature in there. It's something you could turn on and off. So speaking of turning on and off, let me show you really quick the control panel. So if you go to the control panel of the Trade Scanner Pro, after you subscribe to it, it looks like this. It's empty. So you want to turn a few things on: the trailing stop, show previous trades, and heads up. If you notice here, it says counter trend, and we're going to leave that one blank because that's the one you're going to be switching that one on and off a lot based on your premise that you're going to come up with in advance, right? So we'll know to use that based on what we come up with first. You don't just turn it on just to turn it on, right? So as a beginner, this is how you should start out with these settings. Very simple. So if you notice now, my chart has some lines on it, right? And it has some little arrows there. So let me explain what these are real quick before we get into the analysis. So these green columns, which you could turn off, by the way, if they're annoying, I think they're great because what they're highlighting are these little orange candles. The orange candles are your heads up candle. A heads up candle tells you that in the next 3 to 5 candles, a signal is likely to appear. That's why it's called heads up. It doesn't guarantee that the signal will appear, but it prepares you. And if you see a green column behind it, that means it's a buy signal that's likely to appear. If it was a red column, it would be a sell signal. So like if I turn counter trend on, it would find the sell signals, because if the trend here is bullish, right, counter trend would be looking for bearish signals, and these columns would be red, right? So if you notice here, these green arrows, these were previous trades. They're historical trades. If you touch an arrow, it tells you the result of that trade. In this case, this was a profit of 733 points, all right, on the 1 hour chart. That's nice. By the way, this was a suggestion that was made by Savi over here to see the actual value of the previous trade without having go measure his stuff on your chart. Great suggestion. So you see right there, that was a winner. This one probably wasn't. Let's see. This one, minus 429 points. Oh, okay, that sucks. But if you took that one, you lose the 429. But you took this one, you made the 7, whatever what that was, 733, you're ahead. And the reason why it works that way is because the profit objective is greater than the loss, the risk, right? And if using the trailing stop, it's constantly working to not only reduce your risk, but if the trade goes beyond the profit objective, it allows you to ride a winner. And that's really where you get ahead, because now instead of 1.5 to 1 reward risk, instead of having that fixed, now you're open to random opportunities that may be 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1. Otherwise, you would never capture. That's probably one of the greatest features of the Trade Scanner Pro that beginners especially don't appreciate. Okay, so that's how it works. Now, so like I said, you have to first decide what kind of trade you want to take. Now, let me know if you guys have any questions about this as I run through this. You want to decide what kind of trade you want to take. We said day trade, right? Okay, so we remember, we looked at the bigger picture, and we know from that bigger picture that up here is a major resistance level. Okay, we knew that. And that's 64K. So I don't need this chart to tell me that. I could have drawn that on my daily chart, and I'd have a line up here somewhere. So we can keep that on here because it's nearby. Okay, now notice, I'm doing the analysis on my hourly chart first. So before you come up with a trade idea, you have to do a little bit of forecasting. So we know we're looking for day trades. Do I need an hourly? I could do this on a 30-minute. I can probably do this on a 15-minute, but I like the hourly. It's decent. It's adequate. Now, so that this is a major resistance up here. All right. I don't need to keep this line there because I don't want to confuse people, but we know there's a major resistance. When we're looking at an hourly chart, like I said before, there are support and resistance on every level. So there are going to be minor support and resistance levels on this hourly chart. We want to define those levels. So let's get a horizontal line tool and let's start looking around here. So I have something over here, it looks like. Look at all these touches, right? When you're defining support and resistance, you're just simply looking for a lot of touches. This is not hard to do. The horizontal line projects forward. We know that going forward, this is a support level. We also know the general structure is bullish, right? But we know that there could be some sort of pullback. Something like this. What level is this? This is 62.5, okay? This line happens to be 62.5. That can be an intraday support for an intraday trade. That's where that comes in. Do not use that for your daily time frame, right? You understand how that works? So this is only for a day trade. Now, that's one level. We also have a resistance level over here. Look at it, touched resistance numerous times. It touched this level. What level is that? 63,250 or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be exact. So that old resistance got blown right through. And look, it's retested as a support. Okay, interesting. Now, we know, again, we saw the bigger picture. We saw that we should be expecting some sort of bearish activity in this general area. But intraday, there's support here. Remember I showed you on those daily candles, there were some tails on those candles? That's what this is. So this could be a long for intraday. Now, what's going on over here? I have a resistance over here. Okay, resistance, resistance, resistance again, right? Broke briefly, came back below, resistance. All right, that's it. Those are my levels for my intraday. I have some support levels. I have some resistance levels. Now, my intraday structure, right? I could look at this hourly structure. I don't have to use the daily structure for day trades. I want a shorter term structure because I'm interested in the intraday momentum, which may not be the same as the bigger picture, right? This structure right here is what I'm interested in. That's a bullish structure, right? We have higher low, higher high, pullback, right? Find support. This is a general higher low over here. Okay, those are all bullish things. So that's going to lead up to a bullish argument because my next question is going to be, what type of trade should I be looking for? Should I be looking for longs? Should I be looking for shorts? Well, this structure is bullish, right? Here, let me use the rectangle tool. This structure, that's all I'm looking at, is bullish. This structure is bearish. This little structure in here, that's bearish. All right, so the question is, though, which structure is more important? Which carries more weight? Well, obviously, the larger data set is going to carry more weight. So I can look at this bearish structure as a pullback of the bullish structure, right? It's a pullback so far. So if this support breaks, then I might be more interested in short continuation patterns. This is where things are going to get a little more complicated. So if you're a beginner, just try to follow along. I don't know, as a beginner, I don't expect you to be able to get this far because it can get confusing. So for purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to consider longs at this support area because it's a support, and the general structure that I'm evaluating here is bullish. Okay, my trend also says bullish up here. All right, so that's all supportive information, and I'm not at a resistance, I'm at a support. Right, so support in a bullish structure should be more likely to hold, right? So now I'm surfacing my trade idea. I'm looking for longs. Now, does that make sense with this candle? It's not exactly a bullish candle on the hourly here. That's a bearish candle. And we're trying to make this bigger. Okay, there we go. Now, this 1 minute situation right here, this is where this right here is what we want to be concerned with, okay? And this is where, notice, the trade scanner now is bearish. This is my 1 minute chart. Keep that in mind. This here can be a problem, right? Because it looks like it's trying to break the support. So there's nothing to do right now. Here's the other thing you have to keep in mind. Remember I said to you before that this thing is in, this thing has a counter trend feature. Trend is bearish. We're looking for bullish reversals here. So what do I do? Anyone tell me? Let's see who's listening. Who's paying attention here? What do I do? This thing is looking for shorts right now. Trend is bearish. I'm on a 1 minute. How do I get bullish trades here? I'm interested in bullish trades. How do I get bullish trades? Anyone? Let me make sure this thing is on. Let me turn all this on here. Steen says counter trend. Correct. So I make sure my trailing stop is on, right? Heads up. And I use counter trend. Okay. Now, my trend is bearish on my 1 minute, but our idea is bullish, right? I switch to counter trend. Notice the columns are green. I'm looking for longs. I'm against this trend. I'm getting an orange candle right now. So in the next candle or so, a signal should pop up, a bullish signal. Now we talked about why I'm looking for bullish signals. If we had another situation, perhaps like up here, this would be a bearish situation up there. But we're looking for longs. That's why I switched. So do you see how important that is? Why you come up with the premise first? You don't sit here and be like, oh, okay, I see this, and then react to it. You don't do that. You come up with your idea first. Now we have our idea. We know our level. We know why we're looking for a long here. Now we need what? We need the market to do what? Who wants to answer that question? What do we need the market to do? What do we need? The market needs to do something here, right? I can't just, jump in. So we're in counter trend mode. Let me turn this on over here. What am I waiting for? So I have my idea and I need the market to what? Show us a trade. Yes, lad, confirmation. This is typically what you would use the candlestick for, confirmation, right? Yes, exactly. See, lad's on the same page. And look, I mean, there's a bullish candlestick in there, isn't it? But the Trade Scanner Pro is much more sophisticated. So I'm not going to take a trade here until I see the signal. The signal is the confirmation. Now you may say, look, all right, this is a 1 minute chart. But what happens if this was like a 15-minute? You don't want to sit in front of, you may be in front of your computer for hours before a signal comes up, right? Let's just say the same exact situation. We've done our analysis. on a 4-hour chart. We're on our 15-minute chart, waiting. We're at the level, waiting for a signal. It could take 2 or 3 hours before a signal appears, right? So what do? You go and you set up a notification, right? You do this, right? And you set this up here like this. You change this to Trade Scanner Pro, and then you just set this thing, right? And it'll tell you then when a signal appears. It'll send you a notification. It could be a pop-up on your thing. It could send you an email. It could do a bunch of things. So counter trend is on, yes. Now keep something in mind. The trend if the trend happens to change back to bullish, just be aware that counter trend will now look for bearish trades. That changes, right? So you have to be aware of that sometimes. But right now, trend is bearish. We talked about why I'm looking for a long. So I'm looking for longs. I'm in counter trend. But again, if this was a 15-minute chart, you would set your notification. Going back to the TradingView subscription, if you had a subscription, you could set many notifications. If you have the free version of TradingView, which you could still run this on, you can only set one notification. So that's important to understand. So I'm waiting for this signal, and I haven't gotten anything yet. I got a couple of heads up, but no signal. All right, no problem. Also, just notice, out of coincidence, I got like a double bottom situation here, failed low. Looks attractive for a long. I like the idea. I'm just waiting for the signal. There it is. All right, we were waiting for this. I'm going to put on 3 lots. Okay, so I just bought 3 lots at the blue line there. Now I'm going to erase this blue line because I don't want confusion. So we know why it took that long. And this is a 1-minute chart. So what is the trade scanner telling us here? I'm long, right? This is my risk right here. How much is that? 72 points. That's not bad. This is why we use something like this. As a day trader, you may not know that 72 points is the most efficient risk to take on this time frame. You may use 100 points. You may use 200 points unnecessarily. So 72 points. Okay, that's cool. What's the profit potential? It's going to be 1.5 times that. What is that? 106. 106 points. Okay. All right. So that's the trade. My job here is done. Like, I'm in the trade, and either we're going to turn around and go to this stop and I get stopped out, or we're going to work our way up to the profit objective. Now, there's another scenario that can occur here, and that is when the trailing stop appears. The trailing stop hasn't appeared yet. It takes some time. It could take and because we're on a 1 minute, it can take 5 minutes before the trailing stop appears. Okay. So this thing is going to have to start going in my favor before we see the trailing stop. Now, I'm not going to react to anything here. Like I just said, we could see red candles. We could see this. We could see that. It's a 1-minute chart. It's going to be very noisy. I don't know how this is going to work out. Again, it's random. But this helps me manage the orders and not have to guess, and get confused and all that other stuff. Now, it started out pretty good, but now it looks bad. Again, don't react. This is on paper, by the way. It's not real. I'm not going to trade real money at this time. But let this thing do its thing. If it stops out, okay, I get stopped out. It's very possible. I can look back at some previous trades here. I mean, look, this trade over here on the 1 minute, that was minus 72 points. All right. I mean, how about this one? Another one, minus 63 points. So there were a couple of losing trades here recently on the reversal side. That's the risk we take. You have to respect the levels. The mistake you don't want to make is it blows through and you're like, hold on, it'll come back. Don't do that, especially on a 1 minute. We just talked about on the daily chart what a risky location this generally area is for longs, right? This thing could pull back to 60K in the next few days. I don't want to get stuck in this. So my risk on my 1 minute is defined here. I should not be stuck in something that goes to 60K and losing 4,000 points or whatever, right? I should not be stuck in that because my 1 minute risk has been defined and I respect it. Same with my 1 minute profit objective. So I'm long in a highly risky area, but my orders are very clearly defined. Now, I'm still waiting for the trailing stop. There's no trailing stop here yet, right? Just to double check. My trailing stop is on, so it just takes some time before it appears, right? And the nice thing about the trailing stop when it appears is it starts reducing my risk. Like, it'll appear here and it'll start working its way up as the candles go my way. If the candles continue going my way, okay, it'll start doing stuff like that. And the trailing stop will eventually, if the trade goes my way, the trailing stop will basically help reduce my risk to nothing. And eventually I can have a risk-free trade. That can happen. And if the market decides to do something stupid, like, again, do something like this, which is completely random, by the way. Again, we're not forecasting that. But if it does something like that and it continues, it decides for whatever reason to continue, the trailing stop keeps me in. Okay? And it helps me capture a lot more than I normally would have. Some examples I've shown here have been way more than the 1.5 to 1, which is what this thing is typically set at. By the way, if you want to change that 1.5 to 1, you can easily do that from your settings panel. You simply go here, and if you see it says reward ratio, you can change that to whatever you want, and it'll place the orders. So you can change that to 2, so that's 2 to 1. You could change that to 3, that's 3 to 1. You could change it to 1, that would be 1 to 1. So you have that control. Again, that's for more advanced traders. If you're a beginner, I would not recommend changing that. But if you're more advanced and you're like, yeah, I'd like to do 2 to 1. Okay, that's up to you. That's why we made all that flexible. So you can change stuff like that. Okay. Now, all right, so let's see how this thing goes here. Let's give it a little time. I mean, if this thing gives me a hard time, whatever, I'll just get out. But I just wanted to show you how this works. Now, one thing I like to do, which this is more advanced, but when the market starts out my way and I enter it, right? I enter, and then it goes below the entry price, and then it goes back above the entry price. I like to use that as an opportunity to add, but I have 3 contracts on now anyway, so I'm not going to add, but that's usually a nice opportunity to add. Also, a break of this high, that can also be an opportunity to add. And that's a very valuable thing because when you lose on smaller size. And when you win on bigger size, right? That's the whole idea. How do you make sufficient money on M1? Well, I mean, this is a futures contract. So the spreads aren't ridiculous like that. This is a futures contract. So the futures contracts, the spreads are usually a point. Right? When you're trying to trade the spot's going to give you a hard time. Okay? 30 to 40 euros, right? If you're talking about the spot, you're going to have a hard time. Not a good idea for day trades, the spot market. But the futures market is another story. That's what this is. This is a futures contract. So that's a good question. Important to understand that. All right. So let's just see how this thing plays out here. Now, sometimes what I like to do is if it gets up, like if it starts getting up here, I may take something off the table just because I like to. But let's just see how this thing goes. All right. So far, notice I'm not doing any thinking here. It's up to the market. Previously I would have gotten shaken out on something like this most likely, but because I'm not thinking anymore and the market just does the thinking for me, I just let this thing respect the orders. That's it. Okay. But again, this all came from an idea. This is not just some random, oh, look, a signal showed up. Let me just take it. We started out with a trade premise. Remember, we talked about how we arrived at this idea. We switched counter trend on because we were specifically looking for this type of price action at a support level intraday in a bullish structure. Do you see how all those components are important to align something like this? And then the Trade Scanner Pro helps us synchronize with that 1 hour chart. That's what this is. And now it's helping me manage. That's what this is, a management and confirmation tool, not a forecasting tool. I showed you the forecast. Okay? So that was cool, right? Now let's let me do something here while we're waiting for this. I'll do it on my other screen. I forgot to I gotta pull up the website here. I forgot to do that. Hold on. I'm just gonna go to the link that I have up on the screen here, so you guys can see what the site looks like. Okay. Let's see if that comes up over here. Right. So while we're waiting, oh look, we're almost at the profit objective. Okay, hold on a second here. I'm just going to put this over here for a second. All right, let's just go back. I'm going to take something off the table here. So I'm going to take off one. I mean, we're right there. I might as well. So I sold one, right, nearby the profit objective. It's close enough. Notice I got this red column here. Notice. Let me explain that. The trend has changed. Notice the trend has changed. I'm still in counter trend mode. So if I get any heads up, they're going to be red now. And it's now basically looking for, see the head, see that? It's looking for shorts now because the trend was bearish before, remember? The trend is bullish now. So if I leave counter trend mode on, the next trade is going to be a bearish trade. I'm not looking for that. But while this trade is open, I'm going to leave it on because I need to keep this in counter trend so the orders stay intact. Make sense? Look at my trailing stop. Man, it took a while for that thing to appear, right? Hey, Giovanni, how are you? It took forever for this thing to appear, right? So it just reduced my risk by a tiny amount. But as this thing starts going my way, this thing is going to continue to follow the trade. Now, here's a cool thing about the Trade Scanner Pro. You can do this. Well, you just, the usual. You can go back and watch it. You can change the sensitivity of that trailing stop, right? By default, it's on regular, but you could make it tight, which means it's going to be really close to the price action. See, this is on tight mode, so it's going to be a little closer as the market continues higher. It's going to move faster. Okay. You can also be in loose, which makes it less sensitive. Okay, see, I went backward. That's going to be even slower. That basically lets the trade breathe more. If you want to try to ride it longer, I would suggest, as a if you're a beginner, just don't play with that. But if you're advanced, you have some flexibility there as well. Okay, so far, look, some hesitation here at the objective. All right, I locked in one, but here's the thing. I'm going to let the trailing stop determine the outcome of this trade, unless it takes forever. If it takes forever, I'm just going to close it. But while we're waiting for that, because I locked in one, let me show you the website. So if you want to sign up for the Trade Scanner Pro and you want to use it for 14 days for free, you go to the link on the screen here. It takes you to this website, and you can sign up for 14 days right here for free. And then after that, it bills you. It's $22.50 a month if you pay in advance, 1 year in advance. That's $270, right? But if it's monthly, $30 a month, that's the monthly version, and that's month to month. You click here, it takes you to like a sign-up page, and then you have to make sure that on the sign-up page, you fill in your TradingView username. You have to do that. That's very important. If you don't do that, you won't get an invite. Once you do that, you fill it out, you submit. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour to receive your invite. Please be patient and wait for the invite. If it takes longer than an hour, then you can email me and say, what's going on here? But usually it takes within an hour. You get your invite notification on TradingView, and you can put the thing on your chart like this. Okay, so give it a try. All right, so look, I don't like that price action. I'm still long too. It's green. What do I do? Well, I have two choices right now. I can blow out of another one simply because I'm reacting, but I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to wait for the trailing stop. The trailing stop has moved significantly. So my risk right now on this trade, remember it was like 72 points. It's now like 20 points. My risk has reduced from 72 points to 20 points. Think about that for a minute. As this candles, remember 1 minute candles can look very dramatic and they're very noisy. If the candles continue to waste time and we start pushing up into here, this trailing stop is going to move up to here. And once it does that, it's a risk-free trade. So I may give back my profit, okay, but the risk is, see, like right now, this is practically risk-free. This is almost at the blue line. This is a risk-free trade. Think about that. If it goes back to my blue line, I get out. I respect it. I give back my profit, yes, but that's a chance I should be willing to take. If I'm not willing to take that chance, I should blow it out now. That part is up to you. But like I said, I'm going to respect the orders. So far, we haven't touched the trailing stop. Let's see if we go beyond the profit objective. So do you see like how the trade scanner can keep you in during this type of noise? Normally something like this, I would see that. Notice I was reacting just by what I was saying. Oh, I don't know. I don't like that candle. I don't know. I should get out. You should not react to what you see, because what we see is not reality. We don't actually know what's going on here. It's just noise, random. Okay. We don't know what's going on here for real in the order book. We don't really know what's going on. So now look, my trailing stop just moved again. This is a risk-free trade. If this thing pulls all the way back and taps me out, I'm still ahead slightly. Plus I locked in that one contract around this price anyway. So I have 2 contracts right now. It's like $165, whatever. It's on paper. And again, just to be clear, this is the futures contract, right? This is on MEXC. This is the futures contract. This is not the spot. How make 1,000 a day with one simple strategy? Who cares if Bitcoin goes to 500K? One can just, oh, yeah, right. Right. He's making fun of the headlines. Yeah. One simple strategy, $1,000 a day, nonsense. Right. Yeah, sure. You can learn all the secrets on YouTube for free. Right? Yeah. They fool a lot of people, lad. Let me tell you. A lot of people get fooled. A lot of people. A lot of people. I suspect they're very young. Very young. Because if you're like an older guy and you get fooled by that, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know. You need to read some books or something. Anyway, oh, look, beautiful. How nice. We're beyond the profit objective. It's nice. Look at my trailing stop. So now this trade is starting to be, more than just break even, more than just risk free. It's risk free plus something, right? Now we're fooling around with the profit objective. We're like up here. I'm gonna just lock in another one. I just don't. I can do that, right? I have the choice to do that. So now I have 1. If this thing wants to pull back, I locked in 2 around the profit objective. All right, I gave it a chance to do something dramatic. And, I don't want to be here all day waiting. I was hoping it would do something like that. And maybe it still might. But it's hesitating a bit. That's a pin bar. All right. Just notice we're fooling around here. Also, remember what we talked about before on the daily chart. This is where that daily information becomes valuable. We know that this area up here, 64K, that's a pretty significant resistance, right? Remember that? We're not at a major support level. We're fooling around at a resistance level. So there's a good chance that somewhere in here, this thing's going to turn around the wrong way. All right. So I want to hopefully lock in before that, but the trailing stop can basically help me with that, because I can anticipate that something bearish will happen in here. But if the market wants to randomly go through it for whatever reason, this is where the trailing stop comes in. Because now the trailing stop will determine, right? I don't have to think. That's one of the greatest values of this tool. I don't have to think. Okay? Let this thing do the work for you. The trailing stop is now following the trade further. Okay. So if this thing pulls back on me, I should be making, how much is that? 39 points. So it went from, think about this for a minute. My risk went from 74 points. My risk went from 74 points to plus 39 points. That's my risk, plus 39 points. That's not risk. So I guess you could say at this moment, that's a guaranteed profit if it goes to this level right here. I should not be making less than 39 points on this trade if I respect the order. That's the value of the Trade Scanner Pro. You're not going to be able to figure that out on your own. This thing is doing the math for you. Okay, so that's the great thing. So we're having a hard time at the profit objective. It's a good thing that the Trade Scanner knew to put the profit objective here. There's a reason why it puts it there, and that's it. Okay, so let's see if it touches the trailing stop in the next candle, I'm out, and I'm making my 39 points or whatever. That's on the 3rd contract. I locked in 2 contracts at higher prices, closer to the profit objective. That's cool, right? So I demonstrate this each week, and it's just amazing to me that I see people, they come on here, they sign up for my Trade Scanner Pro, and they cancel it the next day. It's like, you need to give it at least a week to get a feel for how these things work. And that's assuming you're using it properly. Right? And I just showed you again how to use it properly. So look, I'm probably going to get tapped out here. No problem. Hey, how are you, Aspirinus? So that's the value. That's the value. All right. You guys have any questions? I think people really don't appreciate the hard truth you bring forth. Yes, that's correct. We talk about this all the time. Narino, we talk about this all the time. People want to be lied to. People want to hear lies. They want to. That's why all these guys who promise you, like Lad was just saying, these guys who promise you $1,000 a day with this one simple strategy, right? They get all the followers. I don't, because no one wants to do the work. And what I'm showing you here, I don't know how much. It doesn't get any easier than this. What I'm showing you here, it doesn't get any easier. Like I really, the only way it can get easier really is the bot takes a trade for you, and we're working on that, by the way. All right, but it really doesn't get any easier. I showed you how to forecast it. That's pretty simple to do, and then you just let the thing do the rest. You just let the thing take care, take care of the decision making after that, and that's it. I just demonstrated that again. I demonstrate that every week. So again, people want to be lied to. They want to hear that they're going to make $8 billion by tomorrow, and this magical tool is going to do all the work for them. They just press the easy button, and they're going to grow their hair back. They're going to lose weight, and they're going to have a successful dating experience too. They're going to get better with women and all that stuff, and they're going to make $1 billion a day. That's what people want, and that's who get all the followers. Me, I can't even. I get no one follows me. I got some followers. The people that follow me, they stick with me though, because they realize that this game, as some people like to describe, this game is rigged. And that's not the best way to describe it, but it's understandable why they would say that this game is rigged. It's not the best word, but it's a good word to use. It's not that it's rigged, it's that it's random. It's that the market's efficient, and you can't beat an efficient market. Not by conventional means, which means if you have the same information as everyone else, you can't beat the market, which means your results are always going to be random. That's why you don't get anywhere. That's why you could start out with your moving average crossover strategy, and in 1 year, you're still nowhere. You're not making money with it, right? Although some fake guru just told you that you can make $1 billion a day, you just must be doing something wrong. The game is random. We're playing a slot machine, especially on smaller time frames. So that's the reality. People don't want to hear it. This is a hard game, and it's because it's not intuitive. And it's also because we get the worst information possible. Like I was saying before, the quality of information is key. If you have bad information, which most of the time we do, you're going to make bad decisions because we're not making decisions on accurate information. What we see in a chart, we're assuming all of this is accurate. We can't see who's doing what. Okay, let me get out. All right, so you saw me. That was a nice trade. I gave it a chance. It couldn't go much beyond the profit objective. We know that there's a lot of resistance up here anyway. I turned something that was 74 points of risk into a plus 39. That became my risk, plus 39. Not bad. I'll take it. It's positive, right? So price of the trade scanner. Right. So as Dean says there about the order books, yes, someone can see our orders. It's like being at a poker table and someone can see all of our cards, right? You could see, imagine if you could see everyone's cards at a poker table, you're going to win like every hand because you see, or even if you see one guy's cards, you don't need to see everyone's cards. If you see cards of one other guy, that means you can account for 2 more cards than anyone else can. You'll win. You're going to win. You have an advantage over everyone else because you can see something that everyone else at the table cannot see. It works the same way in this game. And no one wants to understand that. They want to think that the market is their personal ATM, and that's not how this works. So anyway, but the price is $30 a month for the Trade Scanner Pro, or it's $270 for the year, which comes to $22.50 a month. Here, I'll bring it back to the page here. The link that I have here up on the screen, it's right here. If you go to that link, it takes you to this, and it explains it right here. So again, you have 14 days for free, and if you cancel within those 14 days, you don't get billed. If you don't cancel, you get billed. You can cancel anytime. So those prices are going higher, by the way. It's going to be $30 a month is very low. I probably went lower than everyone else out there for these type of tools, but that's going higher. Once we're working on some overlays, once those overlays come out, you better believe the prices are going higher. All right, so we got plenty of time. We're still working on it, but when those overlays come out, like we're gonna have a support and resistance overlay, and then we're gonna have something where you can input your own symbols and you could scan across multiple time frames, across multiple symbols. That's gonna be like the extensions of this tool, and now all that stuff. So you'll have options to purchase those as well. But the base price, which is $30 right now, is going higher. You have plenty of time to get this thing at that cheap price. You said once more features are, the price will change. If I sign up for a year, will your monthly payment be fixed? Right. So the yearly, yeah, you're taking advantage. When you pay for the year, you're paying the $270 up front, and that's $22.50 a month. Yeah, that's locked in. You've just paid that whole thing for a year. So yeah, it's fixed. Because you're paying it up front. And so when we do raise those prices, that base price is locked in. Okay. Now that's for the TradeScanner Pro at its basic level, which is what you see here. We're going to have a plus level, which is it's going to have support and resistance levels, and it's going to have an ultra level where it's going to have the support and resistance levels, plus you can add your own symbols and time frames and track these trade signals across multiple time frames from a table on your chart, which allows you to see a lot of stuff going on very easily without having to jump around. And you could set notifications. So that all that's coming. But that's how that works, to answer your question. Yeah, Steen says we have to grow the community so we can buy the order books, right? Because the order books are not cheap. But you can buy an order book, and then having an order, the real order book is like being able to see other people's cards at the poker table. That's really valuable information. Okay. All right, you guys. So I showed you a cool trade. If you have any questions, let me know. You could find me, in the best way to send me messages here on TradingView. You could just send me a message on there, or you could send me an email, mark@markpremarkets.com. I've been having a lot going on in recent times, so it's been a little hard for me to answer stuff, but that's the best way to get a hold of me. You can also, if you have questions about the TradeScanner Pro, you can go to the Discord community. Alex is in there answering questions. Steen is also in there. He answers questions. If you have suggestions, he has a channel in there for that. So there's communication. It's not like, you pay for the software and then no one's around to answer questions. There's plenty of support. So, yeah, thanks, Steen. Well, if you like the video, like, subscribe. That always helps out. Also, if someone reaches out to you, as me or Steen or Alex, and they send you to a website that's not the TradeScanner Pro website, or they're asking you for money or whatever, it's a scam. Please be aware of that. Like, don't get scammed. I would not reach out to you personally. I would not initiate a message to you and ask you for money. I would not do that. If you send me a question, sure, I'll answer your question, but I do not initiate questions. All right, and Steen or Alex, they usually don't do that either. So if you get a strange message from someone, it could be on Twitter, it could be on whatever, TradingView, it could be in Discord. It's very common. Please, it's a scam. Please report them, block that person. I just have to mention that in every stream. All right, cool. All right, you guys. So I don't see any other questions. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Okay, where's my thing over here? All right. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. All right, so thank you. Join me next time, and we'll do this again. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world, and thank you very much for watching.